Today, we're looking at a green ink by Blackstone Australian Bush. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below, but if you've got the time, I would appreciate you checking out the entire video. If you'd like, you can follow me over on Instagram as an ink guy. Also, if you're new here, I do fountain pen ink reviews daily, so I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Noodler's Neponset with a music nib. I wrote with it for a day. I then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading throughout all of this writing, 14 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone, maybe just a tad darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading, again, all the way through this writing, 21 seconds to dry. I'd say it's worth it. The scrubby for both do show a little bit of color variation, not more in the medium than in the extra fine, but we get it plenty in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding and normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 23 seconds to dry. Medium is just a tad darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 33 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both are showing no color variation, and we're not getting it in the writing. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, nice peppering of shading throughout this writing here, 16 seconds to dry. Medium is actually about the same tone overall as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, amazing shading here. It just looks absolutely fantastic. 23 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both aren't showing a ton of color variation, like they didn't show a ton on the Clairfontaine. Extra fine showing more than a medium, but the shading in the writing is absolutely standout fantastic. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is absolutely amazing. It shows why there's so much great shading in this ink, but this is not the way I would have thought that this was blended at all. We see a pink at the bottom, and it's moving its way up, and we see some orange come in. Look right in the center, and you're going to see those spots of the orange that's there, and then a very nice darker green. Gorgeous. I am shocked at this particular mixing to get this tone. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Now it did not move as far. The pink is much darker and on the bottom, showing a line of it on the bottom. There's a little bit of the water separation. More of the orange is seen. The green is very much there, and now it's going to sound funny because I'm going to say a majority of it looks rather unchanged. The only thing that really looked like it changed a lot was the pink at the bottom. It's just that the orange is much more noticeable. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation because that's a lot of blowout. So I wouldn't do it. Now, water is lifting almost all of this ink off the page in only 30 seconds. At the very top of it, you do see the very beginnings of white of the paper coming through. Pen Flush does everything that water does and nothing more, because you can't really do more than removing it. Okay, I know that both the Pen Flush and the water are still showing plenty of the green. Water is all that it took to get it out of my pen. Now the 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the page, but I didn't need to use it. I test viscosity or flow with a tilt test that I'll link down below in a description or in a card. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Blackstone's Australian Bush has a viscosity of 2.56, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Blackstone's Australian Bush has an average dry time of 22 seconds, which makes it a slower dry time, but the look of this ink I think is totally worth it. Instead of finding inks that look like Blackstone's Australian Bush, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a very dark color, kind of a green leaning black, so I chose Robert Oster's Green Black. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, black and red, and white lines paper. Now, I don't frequently put my notes up as a part of the writing samples, but none of my writing sample papers were this deep a cream color and really showed it. I just really wanted to be able to show the massive amount of shading that's going on in the cream paper of Life notebooks. Yep, Life. The next one I'd actually wanted to look at was the yellow Rhodia to see, do I get any real tone and, in this case, performance change. And what I do notice is this. There's no real tone change, but there is a difference in the amount of shading, because if you look at what's going on, the shading gets very eaten up, really starts to disappear for having that yellow backdrop, although I don't see it being an issue in a professional environment, because they probably don't want you using that green ink, because so many suits just live with a stick up their butt about ink color. Black and red notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have a peppering of shading that's going on. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading shows up much nicer here than it did with the extra fine. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both aren't showing much color variation, although we do get some in the writing. And last up is white lines paper, which it's not made for fountain pens. We do get bleeding that occurs. It does not touch the page underneath. We do get a minor amount of ghosting. I don't think you could use the back of the paper seeing it in person. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a tad bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 6 seconds to dry. The medium is just a tad bit lighter than the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, we do get quite a bit of very nice shading going on in here with this very absorbent paper. 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both are showing no color variation, although we did get it in the medium, and that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Blackstone's Australian Bush? This ink as a green is perfect. It really reminds me of Tully, Australia, which everybody knows, of course, is where the movie Sniper was filmed. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? A medium flow, medium to broad, really puts down that great camouflage shading that I love so much. If you've made it this far, and according to my analytics, 50% of you aren't, and you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, I would invite you to subscribe, and thanks for watching.